What's good, everyone, and welcome back to Kaya's Commentary. And if you're new here, welcome to Kaya's Commentary. This is a podcast that offers commentary on pop culture topics, real world issues, and anything in between. This is episode 5 of my 13-part series titled Picture This, where I look at Black, Indigenous, people of color representation in the media and of media of old and how that affects their presence in the science fiction and fantasy genres of today. In episode 4, we covered race and its effects on Latinx communities, and today we're looking at race and its effects on Asian communities. As stated in prior episodes, this series contains use of out-of-date language. I feel it important not to censor myself because I don't feel I can properly talk about the stereotypes, their impact, and their official names from a historical context without using certain words. So viewer discretion is advised. Also, while I strive to be as accurate as possible, these are meant to be introductions. People dedicate their whole careers to studying race and culture and the intersectionality between the two, even with my BA in theater arts and my MA in mass comm, two arguably research-heavy degrees. I'm certainly not going to be able to tackle everything in the 30 to 45 minutes that I hope these videos at least somewhat round out to. That said, I will do my best to make this as informational, engaging, and entertaining as possible. With that, let's get into it. As mentioned earlier in episode 1, there's a point in US history where there's an influx of Chinese immigrants to the Americas in the 1800s. White Americans begin to refer to this period as Yellow Peril and begin fear-mongering about Chinese immigrants taking over. UA Little Rock history professor Barkley Key discusses the US Supreme Court's ruling in response to this fear.
There's another situation. Obviously, there were Chinese people, there were people of Chinese descent who were here. There's a situation in Mississippi. I forget the year, teens or 20s, and as we just explained, racial segregation is pervasive, and in Mississippi, as elsewhere, there are schools for black children, there are schools for white children, but there is no in between. One must be defined as black or white. Well, there are people of Chinese descent in Mississippi, and they look at the schools and they say, well, the white school is nicer, it's got more resources and so forth. That's the school I want my kid to go to. And the folks in Mississippi, the white folks in power say, well, I don't think we want that. And so there's a Supreme Court case that determines that, as far as the law is concerned, people of Chinese descent may be defined as Negro in Mississippi.
Fast forward to the 20th century and American involvement in the Korean and most notoriously unfavorable war, the Vietnam War, and derogatory words like gook enter mainstream lexicon. This is an Asian enemy who is invisible, they're powerful, they're a superhero who can absorb punishment. Also, kind of want to say that they're a defense of Japanese internment camps, so a reason for why they can be forced into these camps because they can endure it. And then also Chinese immigrants working on the railroads. That's all that they're equipped to do. Bottom line, it's really just a derogatory word. As political conflict continues, more negative images enter media through cartoons. Sexualized stereotypes also begin to emerge. In the documentary Slaying the Dragon Reloaded, it's pointed out that Asian women are often sex workers driven into prostitution by the wars, but are also there because they're just there by nature. It's in them naturally to be sexually submissive and sexually pleasing. Stereotypes of Asian women include the China doll. This is the counterpart to Pocahontas. They're innocent, fragile, exotic, eagerly submissive. We get this phrase, me love you long time. Or she's the dragon lady. She's evil, seductive, desirable. She's able to reel people in and then she strikes. She's untrustworthy and conniving. Others include Korean women being restaurant owners and nail techs. And one way or another, these women are exotic, submissive, and pleasure-giving. And unfortunately, it's not just white media that does that. Hip hop, which started in the 1980s as a form of political protest and has grown into something that still can be a very positive message or form of political protest, but also is something that is slightly, sometimes more than slightly, openly misogynistic. In films of old, like the 1931 film Daughter of the Dragon, the Asian woman is in need of saving from the Eastern world by the Western world, and because they're always in need of saving by the Western world, the story then backgrounds them for white characters. Asian men were stereotyped as Fu Manchu, the evil, greedy Asian obsessed with white women. The yellow Uncle Tom, he's very old and very passive, and he speaks in broken English. The Kung Fu master, who is a master in martial arts and uses said mastery to show white characters how to hone their anger and make the most of it. Then we have the wise old man, or Confucius, who is all-knowing and profound. You see this in films that use Asian mythology for supernatural reasons, as it's a quick and convenient reason for why something has magical properties. I'd argue you also see this in action films of earlier periods with the Kung Fu master, because not only are they just really good at their craft, they've gotten to the point where they are above it, right? Like they are so in tune with themselves and their craft that sometimes they make you float off the ground. Like they can, I don't want to say fly, but fly. Then there's the whitewashing and yellowface of Asian characters. We see this in Breakfast at Tiffany's, played by Mickey Rooney, and Yellowface, the character has a prosthetic teeth, he has makeup around his eyes for slanted effect, and he talks in a heavy, heavy accent, as this is supposed to resemble some form of a Japanese character. Cartoons again also perpetuate these stereotypes. Now, there have been efforts by the community to push back on these stereotypes, and that can look like a Media Action Network for Asian Americans that strive to share with Hollywood execs what stereotypes not to do. Also, in 1961, to go back, there's the Flower Drum Song, which is the first major feature film for Hollywood to have a majority Asian American cast and an Asian American contemporary story. Also, we have The Drifting Avenger. There are a lot of Western actions of this period slightly, so we get these kind of films as well. In the 1980s, Asian descent people ironically go from being foreigners who could never assimilate to being the model minority. They're shown as upstanding, really smart, they're good at science, and it's meant to say that, hey, if Asian people can assimilate as they have, then anyone can. Now, while it may sound good to be presented as being really smart, the reality of these good stereotypes and the model minority theory is that it actually strips Asians of their humanity by showing them as overachievers with little emotion or an outside life. Asian men in particular were these nerdy kids with the cool tech, but not really someone you wanted to be. In the Goonies, Ke Huy Quan's character's name is literally Data. And while you thought Data was cool, you wanted to play with his toys, did you really want to be him? Not in that day. Asian men overall become desexualized, asexual, and unlikely romantic leads. Now we get to the 80s and we have a couple of actions and we have a couple of westerns and we have a couple of dramas. So the 1982 film Chan is Missing challenges the notions of Asian men not being romantic or sexual leads when it premieres with an all Asian American cast directed by an Asian American. The slight problem with this is that while asserting Asian males themselves, there's this replication of silencing Asian women. However, other Asian-led films like Crazy Rich Asians, Joyride, Everything Everywhere All at Once, in the early 2010s, and some of these names, when I was looking up these things and doing my research, several different names appeared, so I'm not quite certain what's what. But we have Komida Simham, which is, I think the English translation is Majestic Lion of 1990. We have East Meets West of 1995, Wendy Wu Homecoming Warrior of 2006, Dynamite Warrior of 2006, The Good, the Bad, the Weird in 2008, and an inaccurate memoir, also I believe known as Eastern Bandits of 2012. All of these do a better job at featuring both women as complex characters outside of their sexuality, or maybe they are a little sexual, but it's taking that sexuality back, or just Asian representation in general, and adds depth to the notion of testing familiar bonds and expectation with a character's own sense of self. So, one of the stereotypes that we see, and we see it well up into the early 2010s, is this notion of Asian parents wanting their kids to be doctors. Like, they're really smart, so they all have to be doctors. You go be doctor and make a lot of money, is how a lot of these stereotypes are presented when their parents who are, I believe, first generation, either they would be the first generation immigrants or their parents would be. but they would still speak in broken English. And they wanted to be doctors because doctors made a lot of money. And so we even see this, I think, in Glee with the character of Mike. Mike wants to be a dancer, his mom wants him to be a doctor. And they may have done a better job at like showing the dynamic between that, but is Glee, so I highly doubt it. However, these stories have this notion, they push back on this notion and represent, okay, so yeah, there's this family expectation of me from my parents, and there's what I want to do, and I assert myself in that, and they may accept it and they may not, but it's not done in the stereotypically Western way that we see. Back to Asian men and romantic love, particularly in Everywhere, Everything, All at Once, the Asian male lead, also Ki Hoo Kwan, who won his Oscar for this, stands up for himself as being someone worthy of love. And we also see this in ABC's Selfie with John Cho's rising up Eliza and her developing feelings for him, which RIP Sophie, because you could have gone places. Um, but there is an episode dedicated to this in which Eliza tries to find him a date and tries to give him dating advice because she's never seeing him with anybody. And they have a slight romantic moment where it is known that yes, I can be that person, and yes, I can get the play if I wanted to. So we see these representations being challenged. We see these representations challenging these stereotypes of old about sexuality and romance and familial bonds. So, with that, I will stop there, rounding out this overview of Asian people's places in Western dramedies and comedies. If you like this video, be sure to like this video, leave comments down below, and let me know what you found interesting about this video. Be respectful, we can have a conversation with one another, but only if we are respectful. Thanks for listening and watching, and stick around for the next episode where we get into race and its effects on Arab communities.